Hi, Facebook Live. It's Pam Stewart-Martinez. So, on February 28th, I went to the PEP. And I'm sure a lot of people don't know what the PEP is. The PEP is the Panel for Education Policy. And they vote on any proposals that have to do with schools. We're talking contracts, we're talking changes, significant changes within the school system. They vote on it. And so they had some votes on contracts or something. But the main reason that I went was because they were actually closing quite a few schools. And you know that I support our families and our students in New York City. So this was very important for me to be there. I mean, they have another PEP coming up where they're planning on closing a few other schools. They have proposals to close schools. And so I'll be at that PEP as well, fighting for our families and for our students in our community. Anyway, I've mentioned this before, and I don't know how many people have actually heard me when I've said this before. And hold on just a second. Ephraim just wrote me. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with you, Ephraim, but I'm going to get to that. Let me start at the beginning because I have to bring people in so they understand how important, so they understand what's actually going on and how what the mayor is doing to our education system, it's like a dictatorship. He is picking and choosing what he wants to be done. He's disregarding, and this is all my opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, but this is my opinion. He is picking and choosing for his personal reasons, not necessarily what's best for each community, what he feels is best. But anyway, so at the PEP, you have 5 borough appointees. So each borough president appoints a member to the PEP. The unfairness of the PEP is that the mayor gets to appoint 8 people. Now, some people would say, well, okay, you've got to have an odd number of people. I agree. But when the PEP is pressured not to vote their own conscience, but to vote the way that the mayor dictates that they vote, that is a problem. And that's what I've been told on several occasions. And you don't get the will of the people when that happens. You get the will of one individual because the borough president's appointees, they only have 5 votes. The total number of votes are 13. The chancellor sits on the PEP, but she's a non-voting member. She doesn't really have a vote. She just sits there and inputs her views to some extent. But quite honestly, whatever he wants happens because he dictates what should happen. And if anyone votes in a different direction, all of a sudden they resign from the PEP. I mean, a perfect example of that is Miss Cleveland, who was at the PEP and voted differently than the other mayoral appointees, and now she's resigning. And if you read the Post article, it suggests that the reason she's resigning is pressure from City Hall. And City Hall is not, in this case, City Council. City Hall is our mayor. Now, I'll give you an example. There is a school in the Bronx. It's called New Explorer High School. That school has had 3 principals in less than 3 years. There were so many things that weren't happening in that school with the first 2 principals. The graduation rate was low. Student attendance was low. Students didn't even understand why they needed to take a Regents exam. Um, it, it, it wasn't, things that are supposed to happen in a high school weren't happening. Finally, the school gets a principal who goes into the school and she is working with the students. She's inspiring the students. She increased the graduation rate. There are more students than ever taking the Regents exams. There are no students in the hallways. You know, every student is going to class. She brought AP classes into the school. I mean, to the point where her school actually houses most of the AP programs. She also has a program in there where students mentor other students for college. They've taken training courses in this. I mean, she's really doing her thing, and she's been there a year. She has truly inspired the students. I mean, amazing things are now happening in that school. Now, we're talking years of that school being one of the struggling, failing schools under the renewal system. And then finally, you get a principal in there who's doing the right thing, who's inspired the students. The students love her, love going to school. And now you want to close the school? So that was one of the schools that I was fighting for when I went to the PEP. And the borough appointees, all 5 of them, even Staten Island, which, you know, Staten Island is usually by itself and they vote in the best interest, in my opinion, the best interest of Staten Island. Even they were voting in favor of saving this school, New Explorers. And all of the borough appointees, except Miss Cleveland, voted against keeping New Explorer High School open. So Miss Cleveland voted against the other against the other mayoral appointees. She also voted against the other mayoral appointees on a lot of other school closures. Now, one day, soon, we're going to discuss this whole renewal school process, because I really feel that there needs to be some sort of investigation about what is actually happening in our renewal school programs. There's a lot of things happening there that warrant close examination. How the money is being spent. Who is it really benefiting? We really need to look into that. But for now, we need to look into rolling back mayoral control, because one person who is from one community should not have the final say in what happens in the many different communities that make up New York City. And that's what's happening. It's not right. It's not fair. And it doesn't benefit our communities. And that's a problem. The mayor hasn't set foot in any of these schools. Maybe a few schools, but I seriously doubt if he's ever set foot in the schools that he pressured his appointees to close. He has not stepped foot in New Explorer High School to say, okay, I see where this is a problem, and this school is not making the difference that we needed to make. Oh, and I'm sure that he hasn't stepped foot in, Crotona Academy High School, which that's the next PEP vote, also in the Bronx. We really need to roll back mayoral control. No one should have that much control over our communities and what happens in our communities. We've given away our say in how our children should be educated. So my next video, we're definitely going to be talking about the renewal school program. And I'm going to talk to a few people. I'm going to see if I can get a few people to speak about it, their opinion on it, whether they think it's working, it's not working, why it isn't working. And let's do a deeper dive and figure out really who benefits from it. Thank you for listening, and if I can get any of you to show up at the next PEP and support our schools, I'm going to be posting more information about the next PEP. The Bronx needs to be strong and come out and fight for our schools, because if we don't fight for our schools, who's going to do it? Oh, and by the way, the 3 schools that were saved, they all had elected officials that actually showed up. I mean, granted, we had some elected officials who wrote letters and their staff members came and read the letters, but the schools that were actually saved were the schools that had their assembly people or their state senators show up and fight for them. Just saying. Have a blessed day.